Good evening, and welcome to a very special edition of He Said Live. Tonight, we came together to pay tribute to our co-host and dear friend, Vash Boddie, lovingly known to many as just Vash, whose life tragically and unexpectedly ended during the week of January 13th. Vash was not only an integral part of this show, but also a bright light and an inspiration for everyone who had the privilege of knowing him. His passion, humor, wit, and wisdom left a lasting impact on all of us. This evening, we are honored to welcome special guests who knew Vash in different ways, some deeply, others who met him just once, and some who never met him at all. But all were touched by his extraordinary talent and spirit. Together, we celebrate the legacy and blueprint he created for He Said Live, one that we will always treasure. Thank you for joining us tonight as we honor his memory. Hello again, everyone. I'm Alvin King, and welcome to He Said, a look at the world from a seasoned Black man's perspective. It is Friday, January the 24th, and I want to thank all of you all for being here tonight. Last week, prior to starting our show, we received news that Vash Boddie had tragically taken his life. This has been an extremely difficult show to frame for you, but it was something that Sean, Bobby, and I felt that we must do. You just can't prepare for a show of this magnitude. As we honor Vash tonight, we will have a conversation about suicide prevention. Before I bring on Sean and Bobby, I want to, first of all, thank everyone who reached out to me directly to offer your condolences and, check on my well-being in the midst of what we have going on. It's appreciated. And so I just wanted you all to know that. And also, I want to also give you guys a disclaimer. Our program will include conversations surrounding male trauma and suicide prevention. Please be advised that some of the topics discussed may be sensitive or triggering to you as viewers. And while Bobby, Sean, and I are not subject matter experts, we aim to approach these discussions with care, compassion, and respect. Our goal tonight is to raise awareness and foster understanding around these important issues. If you or someone you know is struggling, we strongly encourage seeking help from trained professionals or contacting a trusted resource for support. Thank you again for joining us for this very important conversation tonight and for understanding as we navigate through these sensitive topics. All right, I don't do what I do alone, ladies and gentlemen. So if you all are ready, let's get on with the chat. Hey, wait a minute. Let's get on with the chat. Hold on.
The one he said short.
Okay, I was like, hey guys, how you guys doing?
Hanging in there, man. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
TGIF, chance. TGIF.
Good to see you. And I'm just going to do this publicly. I'm checking in. How you doing?
I'm happy. I mean, honestly, truthfully, I'm grateful, very blessed, fortunate. I can truly say I'm happy. And I hate using that word happy because it's an emotion that can fluctuate but
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Excellent.
Good.
I'm hanging in there. I didn't share with you. I had another car issue today,
Uh-oh.
and $1,400 later, I'm back
Mm.
on the road.
All I can say is, look, when things happen, things are still going on.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
It's
But
all it's
as I said to my friends, the blessing is, whereas I know someone might have had to walk away and say, like, I'm just going to take a wing and a prayer, and it hurt, but I was able to get it fixed, and so I want to have context, and I want to have perspective about the blessing even in the midst of the challenge. So,
Amen.
how about that? I
amen.
gotta tell you guys, I one of my first memories of Vash as we were going through the show,
Yeah.
I would always say that, wow, I'm on camera, I'm live. Why do I have on cologne? Why am I going through all this stuff? Right. And so the first thing that Vash did when he saw me for the first time, he said, I gotta smell you. He and that he said, well, you do. You're consistent. He said, because you've always said that you just want to put on cologne whenever you're in front of the camera. And so that is one of the memories that I wanted to share before we get into the story tonight.
And of course, you remember when I joined the team, of course, he would always say, like, I can smell you, Bobby, all the way through
yes,
like
he
he
would.
would give you compliments, and then he would say, like, did you wash before we did this? I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
Well,
I got
first,
the opposite end of that.
well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me say hi to some of these folks who have come on
Yes.
here that have also called. Daddy Rod Onyx, thank you for joining us. Rick Irick, you're a faithful fan. Thank you for being here. Eric Shields, you called out and been giving love all week. Monica, you gave me the biggest hug this week.
Oh,
Antoine Wilson, Kendall Fisher, Sean Holmes, Jess. My
good to
condolences
hear
to
from
you,
you.
Jess. My condolences to you. Sean Holmes, Rose, Michelle Bowie, Andre, Colin Clark. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Sean.
you all for being here
Hey,
tonight.
everybody.
Well, guys, like I said, I told folks that, that this show, it wasn't easy for us, but I also, we thought that it would be good for us to share, some personal experience. And also, if, as it pertains to the topic of the show tonight. So let me ask you guys, first of all, how Vash's death impacted you individually, first of all.
Well, as you know, Alvin and Bobby, I never met Vash. And I only knew him through the past episodes prior to me coming on. And when I watched the episodes for a while before he left the program, and I've always thought that he was an engaging individual, honestly. I thought the three of you all had a camaraderie that was somewhat enviable. You guys, in my opinion, are kind of the nice version of The View, if you will. That's how you guys.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take that.
Yeah, we worked hard to get to that.
Yeah.
Bobby, how about you?
I will say that, I was really surprised. Like Sean, I first encountered Vash by being a viewer of the show, and was very honored when you extended the invitation to join the two of you, and was often amazed at how quickly we were able to gel and kind of create the chemistry that so many people commented on. And then, of course, when we did the anniversary show live in Philadelphia, to hear so many people be so surprised that it was the first time that the three of us had actually been in actual shared company. There was a chemistry there that was surprising to many, including, I think, me. And I don't want to speak for you, but it meant something to me that people felt that we were cohesive as a group in doing this show. And so I attribute that to an open heart and spirit that he offered, certainly to me as a new person joining the trio.
Well, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Sean. Well, you guys knew in what I posted, people found shocking when I announced, Vash's passing, and I said I had only met him once. And everybody thought that that Vash and I had known each other, that we, unlike Bobby and I, who've known each other for over 40 years, they thought that Vash and I knew each other. And so, but we did not. And the way I found Vash was also the way that I had found one of our special guests who would be here tonight. I went online and just looked for people in 2019 that I thought could mesh with me. Now, to do this on social media and not knowing, where they come from, what they do, or whatever, I just watched their mannerisms, and I approached these two people. I approached Vash. Actually, he was referred to me by somebody else, but I still went to his page and I was that person looking. And so when I introduced it to them that this was my concept, they just immediately said yes. Now, Vash has been here with me for almost 4 years. I talk to him every single day. I talk to him more than I talk to my family members. Vash has helped me shed some of the insecurities that I had about being on a platform like this. And to do that with all your competition and everything that's there, to say that what I have is what I have and what I'm doing is what I'm going to do no matter what. Vash helped put me in that vein. And that is very, very huge. So I could go on and on and on and on about some of the things, and I will share some of those later with you guys. But to tell you that his footprint on He Said Live is not evident, I would be remiss to not say that. So I just thank him. I just thank him for giving me life to do what I'm doing with all of you. And now I have you two, and I feel just as, again, the cohesiveness that we had is because he kind of positioned me to make sure that we did that in order to make the show work. Yeah. So again, everything about it. So thank you all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we decided that we would not have this show without, again, broaching a topic and having a subject matter expert here to talk with us about it. And this person who I'm about to introduce was introduced to us by Vash. And so it was so fitting to bring her back. So if you all are ready, I want to have a conversation with Dr. Deborah Warner. So if you guys are ready, can I introduce Deborah and bring her on in all her spirit? Because
all of Dr. Deborah's energy.
All of Dr. Deborah's energy.
She brings it all.
Well, ladies and gentlemen who don't know Dr. Deborah, she is a leading forensic psychologist, popular speaker, trauma expert, training professional, and author. She holds 2 doctoral degrees in forensic psychology and organizational leadership. Dr. Deborah, as she is widely known, entertains and educates people on mental health across media. She regularly guests on television programs, talk shows, and podcasts, and speaks at instructional seminars and conventions. She is often quoted in books and magazines as an expert on topics related to mental health and trauma. She was the author of a widely advice column on mental health and currently hosts a podcast on mental health topics. Ladies and gentlemen, please join, the effervescent Dr. Deborah back to our platform.
Hey guys, how are you?
Dr. Deborah.
It's nice to be back. I'm back. I like being your she said all the time.
Come on.
He said.
And from the moment, ladies and gentlemen, she came backstage, before you see her now, the energy was here. Okay. So, Deborah, I know that, let me say this also to the viewers right now. Yes, our show typically ends at 8:00. It might run over like some of our emotions, this week. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that we have a lot for you. And I just don't want to tailor anybody's emotions who are going to speak and reflect on what Vash was to them. So I just wanted to make sure that I told you that. So Dr. Deborah, having said all that, let me, first of all, welcome you back to the show. And as I said, Vash introduced you to our He Said Framily. And your first show was on March 24th, 2023. And I just want to know, take a few moments, Dr. Deborah, to tell us what Vash Who was Vash to you?
Oh God, to do it without crying. I mean, he was my bestie, and I thought about it for all day, and the only way I can describe it, I could tell Vash anything. I could say anything and he would love me anyway. Even if it was completely like, what are you talking? He wouldn't ever take that approach. He'd go, well, what does that mean to you? Let's explore. Let's play. And I can hear him, just letting me do that, and having someone in your life like that. I always knew it didn't matter how I acted, what I said, he was always going to love me. He was always going to be my friend. Right. And this morning I got up, I said, ooh, I made something great. I'm going to send this to Vash. And I realized I couldn't. And it just broke my heart because I would just text him for no reason, just random, and I just did that because I just wanted to connect with him, So then my flower fell out of my bag. I'm like, I'm putting this on. This look, Vash gave me this look because we did something at ABC. And I said, I am dressing for Vash today. So I just did the whole thing because I said, he's going to be here with me. He's going to be here, So.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Deborah. All right. Let's jump into it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right.
Yeah, Dr. Vash, I'm sorry.
His
energy is here.
He's here, okay? And he's laughing at you. He's laughing at you right now.
Oh, I'm a doctor now.
He is laughing at you right now. Trust me.
He is. Like I said, though I never met Vash, he is heavily on my mind because I can relate. Because I've experienced other people who've gone through what he's gone through, and so my mind has been filled with not just with Vash, but with other people as well who have passed on. So, Dr. Deborah, we never met before. Let me say thank you. It's an honor for me to talk with someone who is an expert in this field when it comes to mental health and trauma, etc. And we all have experienced something, throughout our lives. And I've known 3 people who have taken that path, if you will. So let me ask you this. How do you define suicide prevention? What is suicide prevention?
Oh, God, that's a heavy question. A lot of people who are going to hurt themselves, you will never know, just like we didn't know. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's because they've become resigned to it. But there are signs, that you can look at. There are typical signs: giving things away, having a sense of peace, people who are normally depressed, becoming lightened somehow. And you're like, oh, they're doing better. Someone who's completely depressed and laying in bed and not getting up is usually not going to kill themselves. It's when they start getting out of bed because they have this feeling of, they're going to have some purpose or going forward. That's when you need to start worrying, right? And that's when you start asking the questions and what's going on. But you might miss it, because someone who really is dead set on it doesn't want you to know. So they're going to throw little curveballs in there so that you don't notice, and I will tell you, men usually do it in ways that are very lethal. Right. So they do it in violent ways where women take pills or do other things. Right. But men will do it in lethal because it's over. But that's how we're socialized in the world. So when you say what is suicide prevention, it's really taking that moment. And if you have that feeling, you know what? Pick up the phone and call. Right? Pick up the phone and call. Say something. Don't ignore it. Don't think it's in your head, because, in the end, you'll be better off doing it than not doing it. If they're really your friend, they'll appreciate it. Even if they're mad at the moment, they'll appreciate it.
Amen.
And thank you for that. And while suicide prevention obviously is a universal concept, I'd like for you to kind of touch base on kind of like the cultural impact on it in terms of the differences that may exist for people of color around this, some of the cultural differences that may apply to it, and in particular, men of color.
Well, one thing, men in a certain age group are more prone to suicide. So men in their 50s usually are more prone to suicide. White men are more prone to hurt themselves, right? People of color, usually it's a different way that they die, and they die younger, right? Because of how people grow up and where they come from and different backgrounds, right? So for someone of color to have done this, and to have hurt themselves. They had to be in a very deep way. But also in our community, we don't talk about these things, especially Black men. Yeah. Whatever it is, it's inside. You do not ever look vulnerable. You do not ever look hurt, right? And most men don't. But a person of color, a Black man of color, you wouldn't tell anyone. You don't go see a therapist. You don't go talk about it. And now the rippling effect that we've talked about, who is Vash? Because he's left ripples, right? Absolutely. So people of color in the Black community, they're going to bottle that up and they're not going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So imagine if this was your mom, your cousin, your brother, right? You're not going to seek help. But I want everybody to know you can seek help, and it is okay to seek help because it has a profound effect. Someone who hurts themselves leaves questions. Mm-hmm. They leave doors open. They have you second guessing yourself. Mm-hmm. But those answers you're never really going to get because you're not in that person's mind at that time that it happened. And all you can do is love them the way you remember them.
Mm. Dr. Deborah, before we move on, I wanted to, oh my God, emotions are running a little crazy. Yeah. But real quick, you had said that you defined suicide prevention and how people do certain things. I lost my brother, my youngest brother, to suicide. And I didn't realize that different types or forms of suicide, or how people show suicide, is that sometimes they'll give things away or sometimes they will take things. Mm-hmm. And my brother went around to all of us and took things from us. And that haunted me for years and years until I had to get an understanding that suicide comes in many forms. So thank you for saying what you said in that and kind of freeing my mind up. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to interrupt the question.
No, and our viewers are also chiming in with some very interesting thoughts and perspectives as well.
Let me see what Eric said. I saw what Eric said. Eric said, when you reach out to your loved ones who you think may be depressed or suicidal, listen with your heart, because your ears alone may deceive you.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Alvin, I have a question for Dr. Deborah. Dr. Deborah, you quoted a statistic that a lot of men, Black men in their 50s, take this path. And that's what happened to a friend of mine last March. He was 57 years of age. Mm-hmm. And the other two were younger. One was in his 20s, about age 22, 23. The other was in his early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. And so you read the newspapers, you read about people coming into their prime in their 50s with their careers and, their finances, et cetera, and so forth. So you think that, okay, the 50s is where it really starts to happen. So I'm a bit perplexed that statistic is out there regarding Black men and suicide in their 50s. What is that all about?
Well, you have to look at it as we are a society that chases youth, right? So when you're in your 50s, you're not going to be going up in the club, right? I mean, you're not going to.
Some of them do.
No, some might, but I mean, you can't do that all night, okay? Like you need to go to sleep. Like things happen to your body, okay? Yeah. So I mean, you're trying. You have the money now. You have the education, or you have the street smarts, or you have the world knowledge, right? So you come into your own, but then you're coming into it in a time when now there's time that's gone, and what's ahead of you in your 50s, you're like in the middle of your life, right? Mm-hmm. So your youth is gone. You're not quite old age, but your next decade, you begin to get those letters in the mail saying certain things that you start freaking out about, and they start preempting you at about 54, right? Mm-hmm. And so in our society, that's when you're old. And now, right, people in their 50s around this time, we're Generation Xers, right? Mm-hmm. And at that time, if you look at the Golden Girls, they were like 49. They look like really old. Right? So how we have looked and made that age look right now, it's causing a little bit of, it's called cognitive dissonance. It's not matching what you're thinking and you're feeling. You're doing something different. Yeah. And in your mind, you're having this dissonance, and it's really hard, especially for people who you finally made it, you're in your prime, but that's not what our world says. We chase youth.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's interesting because with this friend of mine, we literally had dinner at my house literally 6 days before he passed away. And so I have to ask you, how can we, all of us, how can we process and cope with the overwhelming emotions, such as the guilt or the sadness or anger that losing someone that we care about to suicide, especially when, like, you were literally with that person the day before or 5 days before. So how do we process? How do we cope with that? Because it's been almost a year for me, and I'm still processing it.
And you're still gonna cope with it. You're still gonna do that. There is the 7 stages of grief by Kubler-Ross, right? And that talks about going through all these stages. There's anger, there's denial, there's acceptance, there's all of these different stages that you go through in the grief process. But guess what? You might go back up to the top, and start all over again because something makes you think of them or a trigger and you get really angry, right? There's times I sit here and I go, I want to just text Vash. Why? I was supposed to see you next week. Why? And then I'm getting angry, and then I'm like, you know what? He must have been in a bad way. And so I calm down, and then I get sad, and then I want to cry. It might be all in one day. It might be over a week. It might be over a year. It may be 10 years from now. I remember when I lost my father, I thought I was good. I thought everything. I went and sat in an art history lecture, and they showed some picture of a little girl with her dad, and I lost it. I had to get out of my class. I couldn't finish class. I couldn't even go to the bathroom. All I wanted was my dorm. Like, I just wanted to get in my apartment and put my head in my pillow. And I was like, my God, what a reaction. But I hadn't gotten over it. I hadn't gotten over the sadness. I thought I was in acceptance, and I truly wasn't.
It's something you said about this age bracket. Let me just read this. Daddy Rod Onyx said, we can't neglect the fact that gay and bi Black men or other men of color, when you get to around 40 or 50 and you're single, the feeling of sadness and being lonely alone can be very triggering. Well, we all know that this is our demographic, ladies and gentlemen. So
talking to our people.
So we're talking to our people. So,
right,
okay.
Exactly.
So thank you all for chiming in today. Thank you.
Yeah, well, straight man too. My friend was straight. He had a son, so it's not a gay issue.
Yeah.
So, and straight men are more likely, honestly, to commit suicide, especially if they're straight and white and they're going through a divorce or terminal illness, which is interesting. And so then, because Black people usually have a community aspect, so then you throw in the wrench of being gay, alone, of color, and you may not have a link to a community. Man, that really changes your perspective. So there's a lot that goes into it in being a person of color. Right? Because if you feel isolated and alone, and you think there's no way out, or a significant loss, like right before you do it, because we're so community oriented as people of color.
So the emotions that one experience, and we all, when preparing for this show, we all talked about the loss that we've experienced in our lives here, can be overwhelming. Tragic loss can be overwhelming. So Dr. Deborah, we would love to hear from you. Steps that we can take to prioritize our well-being and state of health in the midst of tragic loss and grief. What are some of the steps that we can take to prioritize our state of mental health and well-being?
Take care of yourself. Don't kick yourself too much for needing to take a day or needing to deal with that. It's emotional what you're dealing with. Like physical, you can put a Band-Aid on it, right? But you start doing that to your emotional and bottling it up, it's going to explode, right? Whatever that you need to do, don't judge yourself for having to feel.
Yeah,
right?
Essentially honor the feeling.
Honor it. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? Don't, however it is you cope, and don't kick yourself for having to cope that way or what you need to do. I had the other day just sit in my car, and I wanted to watch an HBO show. I won't say what it is, so you don't have to pay for it. And I sat there with my iced tea, and I watched this. Okay, for 30 minutes, just me. And I said, you know what? With all I have to do, what am I doing? I said, because I needed to unplug because I was dealing with some grief. Okay. Other people, they bake. Other people take a jog. Other people drive for 5 hours and then realize, where the hell am I? Okay. But you know what? That's how you're grieving and you're coping. And then I was saying, call the hotline. We gave that number, and also call someone, call a friend, pick up the phone. I tell people, write a letter to the person that you're missing. You can't mail it. but maybe you do mail it. Who knows? Whatever
Who
it
knows?
is you need to
You
do.
get it out. You get it out. That's what you
And the address, it just goes somewhere. Stick it in a bottle and throw it in an ocean. Whatever it is, get that out of you. You know, I made videotapes just talking to myself one time just because I needed to get that out. I needed to say that because I'm a very verbal person, right? Everybody's different. You know, however you need the process.
Yeah, honor it. I hear that.
Yeah, I think you just answered my question, which was about, how does someone manage feelings of responsibility, or wondering if they could do something different or prevent them from committing suicide. Because with my friend, like I said, we had dinner at my house. It's myself, his cousin, the three of us, we had dinner. And 3 days later, I called him and said, "Hey, how's it going?" He said, "Oh," he was somewhat dismissive because he said he was working, but he was doing the Uber. And then literally 3 days after that, I get the call that he's gone. So I often felt like, what could I have done different? Should I have made him stay at my house? Should I have made him talk to me? I don't know. So again, I know you kind of answered the question already, but again, how does one manage these feelings of like what I could have done to prevent my friend from taking that tragic step?
You probably did all you could do, because you have to think about, if they were so focused on it, they've thought about all the probabilities. They've thought about that. They've thought about a way to be alone, to do that. When I heard about Vash, someone said to me, "Oh my God, I hope he wasn't staying with somebody." I said, he was alone. I said, he was alone wherever he was. I said, for two reasons. One, he was focused on this, but also he was much too classy to let someone find him.
Exactly.
Right. I said, people who do this think these pieces out, right? So you may have had him stay at your house like that moment, but the next day, who knows what would have happened? Maybe not. So you can't beat yourself up over that. I know someone who killed themselves the day before. They bought all these groceries and had the Uber driver deliver them, or whatever, whoever the delivery service was, house stock full. Next day they hung themselves. Why are you buying groceries? See, that doesn't make any sense, unless whoever was with them that day, they wanted them to think they had a future, so they did that. Right. So sometimes they do stuff to throw you off the trail.
You mentioned earlier also kind of like the fact that there is that ripple effect. Someone decides to take their life, but it impacts a broad range of people who are left behind, who care in various ways about that person. So are there signs that we should be looking for in terms of trauma, long-term stress, or distress, I should say, around those who survive someone taking their life?
Oh, so the survivors of the trauma is what you're saying? Survivors of the victims.
Yeah, yes. Are there signs that we should look for that are concerning in terms of the trauma that we are experiencing and long-term distress?
It depends on the person. I mean, if they have a history of trauma, and this is another one, right? That's called compound trauma. So that's one trauma, right? So I would pay attention to people who have that in their life, right? I would also pay attention to someone whose substance abuse increases, right? They start drinking, they start smoking, they start doing all of these things, or if they have an addiction, they start gambling again, or all of those things. Like, I would pay attention to self-destructive behavior, or they just all of a sudden start living for now and spending all their money. Like, what is going on here? Like, you're taking this awfully hard, right? Or if they refuse to get treatment, they refuse to get help, or they say, okay, I'm going to do better, and then all of a sudden they're fine in front of you, but you hear that they're still self-destructive, right? I would pay attention to a person who just wants to talk all the time. They may need a higher level of care, meaning they need to see a therapist, right? It's okay to call your friend all the time, but if you can't begin to manage yourself, right, then that maybe they need a little bit more help, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? In our culture, we don't ask, right? So you have to maybe go with them to get that first step going on, right? Or now we have teletherapy, helping them sign up for that. That's great, right? Teletherapy is great. There's a lot of services out there that really do help you.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Deborah, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, I Thank you all for chiming in tonight, and for all your comments. First of all, Rodney, Michelle Sims, Jess, DJ Jordan. I thank you all for tuning in tonight and for providing your comments.
Absolutely.
Before we let you go, I do want to mention and definitely go on record to say that because of my therapy and dealing with suicide prevention, I did recognize some things about Vash that I vocalized to him, and his behavior changed. Like I said, we only met once, but we talked every day. And I vocalized it to him. I vocalized it to Bobby. I vocalized it to my producer, Norman, and said there were some inconsistencies that I was concerned with. To say that I think Vash was going to commit suicide, no. That wasn't a part of the conversation. I just knew that I started seeing some things that wasn't the person that I knew yesterday. And so, again, see something, say something is also very good. But Dr. Deborah, I just want to thank you for being here to offer your expertise to Sean and Bobby and I, and for our viewers. Thank you so much. As always, you just come through like honey. Okay.
Aww,
okay, smooth, and nice to swallow. Okay. Okay.
That's so awesome.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Okay then.
That's like tea, like this one.
Hey, I am the She Said, so it fits, doesn't it?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 people who have shifted their schedules for us this week, who are very important to the show and who are very important to Vash, and they are here. So we're going to have them all on camera, but I'm just going to introduce them and get them on before they give their reflections of Vash. And this first person that we're going to bring on, ladies and gentlemen, he is the OG. Okay, he was here from the beginning. When I came to him with the concept, his name is Jacques Whitfield. He was right there at the beginning and said, Alvin, I'm on board with you. His first show with us was February 26, 2021, called Facing Your Fears. And so, ironically, we are here again, and we're talking about something in that vein. Please bring Jacques Whitfield on camera, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome him to the show. And our next guest is Terry Franklin. Terry Franklin is a seasoned attorney with nearly 3 decades of experience handling trust and estates and probate litigation disputes and appeals. Terry was here for a very special show called Estate Planning and the Legacy of Lucy Sutton on January 20th, 2022. He also brought here by Vash, and we asked Terry to come back because he knew Vash personally. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, she is the sister to the family of He Said, He Said, He Said. Her name is Alma Gill. She is the creator and host of Ask Alma, and we could not have had a show honoring Vash without having her on the show. So welcome, Jacques, Terry, and Alma. Welcome to He Said, He Said, He Said, in light of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for being here, guys.
Look at this crowd. I love it.
I know.
So,
Dr. Deborah, let me just say, I was way, hey, the She Said before the first show.
Okay, there you go.
We're going to let you in the fam. We're going to let you in. I actually tried to talk Alvin into that. He was like, yeah, no, we ain't doing that.
I didn't say it quite like that, Alvin.
He was like, yeah, that's a good thought.
I said, yeah, okay, but not today. But first of all, I want to welcome all of you back, and especially, first of all, to kick off the reflections, the OG. Okay, the OG, Jacques Whitfield. Look at you. You look like you have like de-aged. Yes.
You're very kind. Thank you.
What the hell is going on? But welcome back to the show.
Look, it's that West Coast living, man. It's that West Coast living.
So that's where I got to go get hair?
Great. I have to say, first of all, I'm honored to be here. I'm a fan of all of you. And Alvin, I just want to just personally and publicly thank you. for inviting me to support you in launching this initial journey. So I think it was Bobby that said, or it was Bobby or someone that said that this was the nicer version of the View. So I'm like, okay, just think of me as Star Jones. I was on there originally, and I had
Oh, you were that one.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
And you look better the older you get.
Dr. Deborah, I love what you do, and I love what you've said, and it's awesome to be here, and it's awesome to laugh and to celebrate in these. And I have to tell you, this one hit really, 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 really hard for me. I've had people that I have loved who have chosen to take their lives. One of my uncles chosen to take his life. My ex partner, whom I love, present tense, I will always love. And it was the most, I can't even put into words what that experience was like. And Dr. Deborah, he called me before he did the deed, and I was a complete and utter jackass. I wasn't present. And so what I learned from that experience that happened in 2013 was the importance of just being present, the importance of having grace. And so, you know, when I think about Vash has touched me in so many. So my favorite Vash question, and I know, Norman, that you're listening, and all the production meetings or the pre-production meetings, Vash would always say, and you remember this, Alvin, you say, "I've got questions." To this day, I'm like, okay, I've got questions, and that was Vash. I mean, he was just. He is, and I'm going to speak to him in the present tense because his spirit is still here and still touches all of us. And I believe that he's even present in this convening. And so he touched me, he inspired me. And personally, when I was caretaking for my mom back in 2021, I called because I'm like, I ain't built for this. Dude, help me out. And Vash gave me such real, not rose-colored glasses, but real practical advice on what it's like to be a caretaker for your loved one. And I remember that to this moment right now. Wow. And so for me, I'm speechless, honestly. I mean, it's just, it is heartbreaking. And at the same time, because my lived experience, I have experienced people choosing to self-select and transition. I have to say, with difficulty, but with grace, I honor his choice. I get it. I honor his choice. And what I gleaned from all of this is the importance for being present. I believe that we are our brother's keeper. Alvin, you know, we're old school. And I believe that we are our brothers and sisters and loved ones' keepers. I believe that it is our responsibility as humans to open our hearts in a non-judgment way and just be present and connect with those individuals. My life coach told me everyone that comes into your life is going to leave. They're either going to walk away or get carried away. But don't get focused on them leaving. Focus on the importance and the beauty of the time that you had with that person. Amen. And so I really had to presence that even to get ready for this call today, because I was tripping before we came on, and Alan's like, are you signing on? I'm like, yeah, I am. But really, on the real, y'all, I was tripping. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And so I'm just grateful for this gracious and loving energy that all of you have provided. And his legacy will live on. It will live on through the show, because what you folks are doing is truly phenomenal. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so, Alvin, again, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this launch.
Oh, beautiful.
The OG, ladies and gentlemen, Jacques Whitfield. Okay, the OG. So Terry, how about you, Terry? I know you know Vash personally.
Yeah, I know Vash, and I knew him. I met Vash in about 2012. And the way that I came to know Vash was, it was a time in my life when I have a similar story, I think, to Jacques, because I think I sort of followed your progress as I was going through the process of splitting up from a wife that I'd been with for decades. I was raising two children who were teenagers or preteens, and was coming to terms with the fact that I was a gay man who had learned, as so many of us do, that we're alone in our own homes and there's no one that we can turn to. And so we believe that there's no one that we're self-sufficient, we're self-contained, we know how to get through life, we have figured it out, we've mastered it because we knew how to survive even in our own homes and our families where perhaps people didn't understand us or didn't, as much as they loved us, they couldn't understand who we were. So I think that is a part of what so many of us continue to deal with, is a confidence that we can take care of ourselves and we don't have to look beyond ourselves because we have always been able to deal with these things and we just knuckle under and keep going. And we do it with a smile, which Vash did. When I met Vash in 2012, as I said, I was coming through this process and I had met the man who's now my husband, who at that time was a creative artist and who described himself as an artist. And it was the first time in my life I'd heard of anybody really claiming to live their lives as an artist, because my family would have been like, oh, you need to go to school and get a job. And so through him, who was producing a play called Dear Harvey, which was based on writings about Harvey Milk, I met Vash. Vash was part of the Celebration Theater, which was an LGBTQ theater organization in Los Angeles that puts on plays, West Hollywood, Side Story, that kind of thing. And my husband was producing this Dear Harvey production. And Vash was one of the key performers in it. He was also a producer of it as well, an executive producer, I believe. And Vash, I remember, had a part where, part of it was to talk about crowns and gowns. And he said it so articulately and so beautifully. And so I became friends with Vash through my husband. And what I was always amazed by was how Vash was always coming up with some new creative way to express himself. So he was part of Celebration Theater, and that was this amazing thing. And then he was part of this Dear Harvey production. And so I was sort of along for the ride because my husband was a part of this artist community. And then we got invited to Vash's house one day, and he was having this event, this theater performance. And we're like, with this invitation, a theater performance, Vash's house. Vash had this crazy, amazing house in Hollywood off of the 101, I think, on Bronson. And there were like weirdly different rooms, and it kind of all branched from the front to the back. But he had created a theater space in the room on the front. And it was like a wedge-shaped room.
I can see it.
And it had, there was like row 1 and row 2 that was like a slight incline up. And my husband is standing on there. He's like nodding, yes, because he was one of the initial performers at Vash's miniature theater that could hold like maybe 10 people if you squeeze them all into this room. But he was creating art in his home, and he was determined and serious and honest about creating something and a moment and an experience for everybody who was there. And so we were all there loving this moment, and it just became, wow, is this possible? Can my life, I've been on this track of trying to be a lawyer, follow these lines and follow these rules and be this person. Is this possible? To be an artist, to express myself, to be a human being in a way that I never thought I could be before? Wow. And so I watched Vash do that. He had this other event where it was a game. It was sort of a game night, but it was a friend of his who was introducing this new game that he had created. And I'm sure this friend must have done it on, I don't know what kind of drugs the guy must have been on. But there were rules that would, like, we all showed up, and there's food and drink, but there's like sort of a game laid out on this table, but the rules seemed to be continuing to be created as the game went on. And so he would be, well, no, this is rule 38 on this page, and he would hand this thing out, and we're all like, what the hell is going on? How do you win this? And he kept telling us that next this was going to be going to Singapore and all over the world, and Vash was just along for the ride and hosting it, and in this amazing, crazy house of his with artists galore. This was the experience. And I'll tell you one more thing was he did the 13th Fairy, which he produced, which was a presentation with a bunch of different queer, sort of reliving the experience of queer 80s, 60s, different different groups, the Purple, this and all of that, and so there are all these performers, and some people you're like, wow, they have the nerve to get up and do that. There are other people who are like amazing performers, singers, but the idea was that art was for all of us.
Right.
And Vash lived that and showed it, and he lived it with his smile. And so when he invited me to come on the show to talk about my experience of uncovering my connection to my ancestors and how I'm trying to use that story to tell it in all these different ways, because my mission is to bend the arc of history towards justice by telling those stories. Vash was part of the inspiration of bringing me to this point of understanding that this is part of my life, that this is essential to me as a human being, is to create and to express and to live my life in this way. So, I want to thank Vash for that. I want to thank you all for having me here. And for me, life is eternal. What happens between the time that we're born and the time that we leave this planet is only a fraction of what we have done and have the potential to do and will continue to do. But in this moment, we get a chance to think about how we can make the world better, how we can change it for the future. And I know, at least I felt like Vash lived that in the way that he expressed himself to me. So again, I honor, as Jacques said, his choice. And my husband's family was touched by suicide about a year and a half ago. But this was an older gentleman who knew he was sick. He did all his papers and laid them all out, and took care of the woman who had made him happy for 10 years, and she made him happy for 10 years. And so I honor that as much as many in the family said, how could he do this? How could he leave her? How could he do this on the day after Thanksgiving? But he waited until her friends were there who could support her and help her deal and process with that experience. And as I have elderly parents who are struggling we are all going to go at some point, and
yes, we will.
How do we transition? By living this moment and loving it and loving life. And so when we go, we can say goodbye, and we can say what Wayne Shorter said was, "What's next?"
Thank you, Terry.
Can't wait for what's next.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Alma, and you. Tell me what Vash meant to you.
Well, Vash, this is so hard. It's so hard because, like you said, Alvin, I have never been in the room with Vash. Although Vash called me 3 times and asked me if I could meet him for lunch, and I was like, I got a job. How am I supposed to meet you for lunch? But he always just made me laugh so much. Of course, initially, his light, because he had a light about him. His smile, because he had a smile about him. His straight up frankness. But with him, he never had to apologize for being frank to you, because he didn't hurt you with his words. And that is what I think about when I'm put in this situation to think about him deeply. Ask Alma, and he said, like Alvin mentioned, was a, sister brother program. And he would call me after a particular show and say, you should do this. Have you ever considered that? Tell me how you feel about this. And again, I had a job. So I'd be like, I don't know, Vash.
I don't have time.
And he would say, well, you need to. And listening to Terry almost makes me tear up, because I didn't recognize it. But he was trying to pull out the art in me, because I am not that. I didn't think I was that. I would never think I was that. But when I was listening to you, I started thinking about the questions that he would ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't recognize it for what it was. And I think it was because I was afraid to think. Like you said, I'm on a straight and narrow now. Talk about straight and narrow. I could not be more straight and narrow. Give me 2 drinks and you'll really find out who I am. How often do I do that? So really processing our conversations, he was trying to pull that out of me because he saw that. He
Mm-hmm.
saw that when I didn't even see that. I do want to say, and I had said this to the crew earlier, what I thought was so sweet. Folks with their condolences and offering kind words would say, "Oh, he's the cute one that smiled." So, not that everybody isn't cute in the square, but what a great description of him, because he was the one with the big, big, big smile. So I will never forget that. I think someone else was talking about how he would ask you questions. He did ask you questions. He had questions that he wanted you to answer for yourself. Because basically, all of our conversations, he was trying to make me better at what I was doing. He was trying to pull it out of me to be better. And it's nothing wrong with that. It is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Alvin does that with me all the time too. So I say thank you, Alvin. But I tell Alvin constantly that I love him dearly. He knows that. But thinking back, this is a person that I was never in the same room with. But I sent text messages to him like I had known him for years. We sent emails as if we had known each other for years. And we could talk. Like Dr. Deborah said, you could talk about anything. And you didn't, because there were some things in the community that I didn't want to say something offensive or use a word that was offensive. And he would, lovingly direct you or explain to you or bring you to the place where you would understand. And I appreciate that about him. I
Mm-hmm.
I have had this situation happen. We've all had it happen, sadly. And I have to take myself to places that allow me to survive,
Mm-hmm.
because I too have been in the black hole and had to have somebody come and slap. What is your problem? Get out of this, because we love you and we need you. And those are powerful words. And if you can hear them and they help bring you out, that's a wonderful thing. But there are times that you can say that to somebody and it will not adjust where they are.
No.
And in order for me to get through day to day without the heavy burden of guilt, I have told myself that this was their decision and they could not carry the weight of how all of us would feel. They could barely carry the weight of how they felt. So
Mm-hmm.
I too, like Terry and Dr. Deborah have mentioned, I have to allow them the grace that they did the best that they could. And that was the decision that they had to make. I will add, and if of course we can't talk about everything tonight. I got a phone
No.
call from a person very dear to me who said, I have these thoughts, but I don't want to. Now that's a different kind of phone call. I have these thoughts. I don't want to. I know you won't judge me. Can you come?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can. But then there are the other instances that
Mm-hmm.
there is no
Mm-hmm.
phone call
Mm-hmm.
because that person
Mm-hmm.
has fully 100 made that decision.
Decision.
I spoke to a pastor once about it and I said, I don't understand it. And he said, thank God for that, because that means it's not an option for you. And so for his memory, for the love and the care and the friendship that he offered everybody that he knew. Absolutely. Dee and I were talking, and she was like, so we really didn't know him or not know him, but not be in the same space with him. And I said, yeah, we did know him because he allowed us to know him. And for that, I will be forever grateful. I will carry his love with me. I will respect his choice of artistry and to try to allow it to come out as honestly as you possibly can, because it really does actually allow you to be your authentic self. So thank you, Vash, for that. I appreciate it very much.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you all. Thank you all. Real quick, I need to, my producer has put something in our personal chat that I'm going to read. His name is Norman. You all don't see him, but he's like the ghost. He makes everything happen. And Norman said, it was just tonight before the show that I finally accepted that Vash's passing is actually real. One of my favorite memories was when we called him out about flirting with the guest. His response was, who, me? And he said it was priceless. Vash was a bright light of unique in a world of ambiguity. He is missed. Thank you, Norman. I'm glad. Thank you for posting that backstage. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope for all of you who have tuned in tonight, I hope that you feel that we have done Vash proud.
Amen.
This has been an emotional show to pull together this week on so many levels. And again, I thank everybody who reached out to me to make sure that I was okay and that, that things were flowing the way that we hope for them to flow. So thank you. I want to thank Dr. Deborah, Jacques, Terry, Alma, Bobby, Sean for being here tonight to honor this incredible human being that has totally changed my life. And I thought about it, but I said, nope, we need to do the words of the week before we let you all go. So our words of the week. To anyone out there who's hurting, is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength. And that was by our illustrious president, Barack Obama, okay, who will always be my president, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to make sure that I said that. And tonight, to let you guys go, our producer has created a reel. And so we're going to close on the note that we're going to close. Again, thank you all for joining us tonight, but we're going to close on a very special tribute to Vash. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Vash, for blessing us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you all have a great weekend. And until we see you again, be safe.
Bye-bye.
Love you, Vash.